Hey guys, welcome to my little kitchen. As you can see, it is very small. It's about 6 by 8. I don't even have a refrigerator in here. But today, a lot of people have been asking me over the past couple of years, because I used to be a chef. I was a chef my whole life. I cooked a lot of great food for some great people. And they're like, hey Bruce, when are you going to make a cooking video? Well, today's the day. And I'm not really much of a video maker, so it's just kind of just watch and enjoy it. Hopefully you learn something. Today I'm going to do something that one of my favorite foods, fried oysters. I love fried oysters. My wife, not so much. She's not home right now, and we're about to stink up the house really bad. So I'm going to teach you how to make some fried oysters today. Hopefully you like the video. Give it a try. I don't do this for any money, so if you like it, just click like and subscribe. That's all I'm asking. All right, guys, let's get into it right now. So we're going to start with our ingredients here first. I got cornstarch. Today I picked up some bread flour at the store. I don't usually use bread flour because it's kind of hard to find in this area. As you can see, this is some brand. I'm not plugging the brand, but it's bread flour. It's supposed to rise a little bit differently, and I'm kind of excited to see how this comes out because usually I use the all-purpose flour, which you could use all-purpose flour too for this. You got a little bit of cornstarch there. You got some baking powder, not soda, baking powder. A lot of people get that mixed up. I got a thing of salt there. We're doing seafood. We got to have some Old Bay. I got some pepper to go with salt, a couple eggs, and some buttermilk. That's all you really need to make this. You can add other things if you want to get crazy. A lot of people like to put some cayenne pepper in the breading. We're just going to do it this way today. First thing you're going to do is get your oysters. These are fresh oysters I picked up at the meat department today. They don't get any fresher in this area. You want to put them in a cone and drain them for about 10 minutes. Get all that water off of them. If you happen to get a hold of some dirty ones, you can wash them in salt water, warm salt water. Get all the dirt and stuff out of the insides, and then still you got to drain them. Let them drain as best they can. Whatever you do, do not wash these in regular water. It will take the flavor away. You want that saltwater flavor because that's half the taste of oysters. So all right, let's get started and see what we're going to do next. We're going to make our batters here. Okay, like I said, we're going to leave these drained for another minute or two. So I'm going to put these in the next counter over here. What we're going to do now is I'm going to show you your dry ingredients. So get yourself, you need 2 nice pans. I prefer the stainless steel bowls. And this is really easy. There are no exact measurements. We're not baking a cake, we're making fried stuff. I use about a cup of the bread flour. And then I'm going to put in a little bit of cornstarch. This is a tablespoon I'm using. I'm using about a half a tablespoon of cornstarch. Now what that does, it helps it stick to the oysters a lot better. And then last but not least in here, well not last, but don't forget this. This is important or your breading won't fluff up. Once again, I'm using a tablespoon. I'm using it about a half tablespoon. That might be a little much. Let's call it a teaspoon. Let's put a teaspoon of baking powder in there. And then you want a little bit of salt in there because that reacts with your baking powder. Just a smidge. And just do it with a salt shaker. I'd say 1/8 of a teaspoon if you're really going to measure it. Get your Old Bay seasoning. Put a little bit of that in there. Doesn't have to be a lot. You don't want to overpower your oysters. And a little bit of pepper. And if I was to measure this out, I'd say another 1/8 of a teaspoon, which isn't that much. And of course, I forgot my whisk. Hold on. So all these dry ingredients, after you get a mix like that, you just want to just put them together like that. That's all you got to do. Mix them up real well. You get some spices, and especially the baking powder. You want to get that mixed all in there. Okay, so you got your dry ingredients all together. We're going to set this aside, and I'm going to show you how to do the wet ingredients. Wet ingredients, same thing, another stainless steel bowl. You want to get 2 eggs. 1, put that there, and 2. Put it in there. This is your buttermilk. It's not pushing brand names. This is just what they had at the store. About a cup of buttermilk in there. Said you can measure it out or just guesswork. It doesn't have to be exact. Don't let anybody tell you any different. And then you also want to take a little bit of baking powder, another teaspoon we'll call it. Throw it in there with your wet ingredients. That'll make sure your batter is going to get nice and fluffy. And you just beat that up as best you can. And you'll feel using buttermilk, it's a nice thick consistency. Now, if you don't have any buttermilk, don't sweat it. I tried this last week. You can take a cup of milk, regular milk, put a tablespoon of lemon juice in it. Mix it up real good. Let it sit for about 10 minutes. and boom, you got a good alternative to buttermilk. You can also do the same with white vinegar. I tried it both ways, and I prefer the lemon juice, but it's still not going to be as thick as real buttermilk. So that's the next step. We got our wet ingredients, we got our dry ingredients. Next part is to bread these puppies and get them ready to go in the fryer. That's going to be good. Okay, now you can magically see I've cleaned off the countertop already, put my ingredients away, gave the table a nice good rub down, because now I'm going to handle the fresh oysters, and, you know, just got to stay clean. So I got my wet mix here, which is my eggs and buttermilk, a little bit of baking soda in there, or baking powder. I almost did it myself. Baking powder. And I got my dry ingredients here. Just all you got to do is take one of your oysters. Now, since you got a dry side and a wet side, this is an old cook's trick. You want to keep one hand wet and one hand dry. So I just made this hand wet by picking this up. So I'll set it in the dry flour, and I'll pull this hand away. This is going to be my dry hand. So I'll be able to play with the flour, roll around there, get a nice, take a look at that, get a nice coating of flour on it. You don't want too much on for the first one, just enough to dry it out. And then we throw it into the egg mix. Now you take your wet hand, because now we're in the wet stuff. Give it a little toss there, make sure it's nice and coated with the wet mix. And drizzle some of that off like that. And it'll stop dripping. As soon as it stops dripping, boom, back in the flour. Go back to my dry hand, covering it up with the flour. Now, there's a couple different ways you can do this. Some people like to do what's called double baptize, where they'll go back into the egg a second time and a flour for the third time for the flour. Because these are oysters, I'm gonna make these just single batter. But if you're making a fried chicken or something, you can use the same breading recipe, and we're gonna set this aside. Now you want to leave them sit for 5 minutes after. I'm going to do all these. I'm going to pause the camera, so don't take up all your time. I'm going to do all these the way I just did that first one. And I'm going to set them in there. We're going to leave them sit for 5 minutes. Using the wet hand, dry hand method. And here you see the whole batch that I just breaded. They're looking good. They're going to sit. They sat here for about 5 minutes. The reason you do that is it lets that baking powder start to activate, and your breading is going to stick to the oyster a lot better. This is going to be the same with anything you want to bread, whether you want to do chicken, shrimp, even chicken fried steak if you're into that kind of stuff. Same exact principle. Just leave it sit. If the pieces were bigger, I'd put it on a drying rack, but I don't have a drying rack for this small stuff. But anyway, let's get them in the fryer. Now, as you can tell, I'm outside here, because my wife would get really mad if I stink up the house with these, because I'm not going to lie to you, they stink when you hook them, but man, are they good when you eat them. So I got my oysters right here ready to go. I got a fryer here. It's a deep fryer, simple deep fryer. Most people have them. If you don't have a deep fryer, you can go ahead and put about an inch or two of oil in a pan, heat it up to about 350 with a thermometer, and there you go. You can cook them like that. So we're going to take our oyster, and we're just going to gently, or drop it, put it in the oil. They don't take long to cook at all. Here's the way you wanted to do it, nice and slowly. Happen to drop that first one. And when you're putting it in, let it fall away from you, because it has a tendency to splash some oil. If you let it fall towards you, you can splash yourself with that hot oil. Nobody wants to do that. These only take about a minute or two to cook after you put them in. Now, I'm not putting these all in at the same time, because they won't fit and they'll stick together. So we're going to let those cook for a minute. I don't know if you can see on the camera angle or not, but they're getting nice and crispy. I'll try to move the camera so you can see what's going on. I don't know if you can see that or not. I'm not a good cameraman. They're starting to float and they're getting nice and crispy. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take my tongs and I'm going to gently flip them. You don't want to stir them around too much, because you'll take the breading off of it. So what I do is I wait until it forms that nice skin on it and starts floating, and then halfway through I flip them. That way both sides of the breading cooks nice. And this is in real time. I'm not fast forwarding this to this batch. So just to give you an idea. those are cooking up real nice. They're getting nice and crispy. Now I have here a cookie sheet with a paper towel on the bottom, and then I got a drying rack up here, because you don't want to lay it in its own grease while it's draining. It's the difference between taking a shower and taking a bath. When you take a shower, the water runs right off you. You take a bath, you're sitting in your own dirt. And they won't crisp up properly. Just a little gentle move around and make sure they get covered in the oil. And look at that. Look at that. And like I said before about how it stinks. It doesn't smell that bad. It does have a fishy odor to it, and my wife really hates that odor. Me personally, I like it. So here's some of them. I'm just going to leave them sit on here for I'm going to go ahead and cook up the rest of these. I'll pause the video. This is what they look like when they come out. See how nice and golden brown this is with that breading we made? So I've got a few more here to cook, and I'll be right back with you. I just wanted to add one more thing in editing here while I'm looking at it. I forgot to mention, if you're using a deep fryer, you might want to use older oil, not brand new oil. It has a tendency with any fish product, if you reuse oil, like cooking chicken or French fries or stuff like that, your French fries will start tasting like chicken or fish. If you cook a lot of fish in the oil and you throw some French fries in there, they'll end up tasting like fish. Oysters have a tendency to really taint your oil, so when I make them, I like to wait until the oil's just about ready to be changed. And then you can still enjoy your oysters, and then the rest of the food coming out of the fryer isn't going to taste bad. That oil I used was good oil. You can do what you want. I just wanted to give you a little warning and let you know if and I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but you can also pan fry them like on a cast iron skillet or any stock pot with oil. As long as you heat the oil up to 350 degrees. Vegetable oil, I use canola oil. You can use canola oil, vegetable oil, peanut oil. Don't use olive oil. Olive oil it has a smoking temperature lower than 350, and it won't taste right. My favorite's always been canola, though. It's cheap, it's easy, and yeah, I just wanted to add that real quick while I was editing, because I forgot to mention it while I was filming. So, all right, carry on. And there you have it. We're all done. Look how nice and crispy and golden brown those came out. And now it's time for me to have dinner. You put them on a nice plate. I like to serve them with cocktail sauce. You can see right there. To try to make it look a little pretty, considering I have a bunch of fancy stuff at my house. Like I said, now my wife doesn't like these, so I'm going to eat these all myself. But now some people will like to take a lemon wedge, just squeeze it right over there. I'm happy with just a little bit of salt. I'll take a little bit of salt on each one like that. And like I said, some people serve with a lemon wedge. Some people like tartar sauce. I prefer the cocktail sauce. That's how I like it. There's a lot of different ways you can serve them. Anyway, it's time for me to eat. Give it a try. Let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, try something new. But like I said, the breading I just showed you how to do, you can do that on anything. Chicken, shrimp, like I said, chicken fried steak. You might even be able to do like vegetables and stuff. But you don't become a fat guy in a tiny kitchen by eating your vegetables. So, alright guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.